A couple of follow-up questions. Do you prefer Mike or Michael these days?
I typically go by Michael at this point, but most of like my car friends and my high school friends and stuff still call me Mike. So since that's what you guys know me as, that's totally fine.
Okay. I just assume Michael is when you're in trouble, and you're not in trouble right now. So,
well, Megan calls me Michael regardless, but there are certain tones of voice that mean that I'm in trouble. So, yeah, it's more in the tone, but yeah.
okay. All right. And then do you? Yeah, it's not what you say; it's how you say it, right?
That's right.
Do you want last name left out, or do you not care, or?
I don't really care.
Okay. Some people are like, "Oh, this show is too big. I gotta hide my last name." So
who says that?
I don't know.
You're fucking liars.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're tuning in from across the country and around the world. This is the Life Midwest Podcast. Welcome to episode 62, everybody. I'm Kevin Palmer, a washed-up musician. That is our Thai correspondent and communications major, Wes Shirley, over there.
Hello.
And Seattle's best, an Army veteran and a Midwest native. We got Lenny Wells.
Heyo.
You can always tell when the youngest is asleep or awake based on how loud Lenny is in his introduction. Yep. We have a special guest with us today in the next installment of the My Friends series. Joining us today is Michael Lehman. Mike, how you doing, bud?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Very, very excited. Been looking forward to this for quite some time. I'm glad we could arrange this for 3 different time zones, 4 different people to get together. Always a little bit of a feat, definitely a little bit of fun to get together, and just kind of like the old days, right, boys?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, honestly, like
Mike has listened to a little bit of the show and has a few episodes under his belt as far as my friend episodes that he's listened to, and so kind of hopefully knows what to expect aside from the curveballs that Lenny or Wes might throw him today. Who knows what's going to happen. I actually don't know what's going to happen this episode. Is this going to be My Friend, or is this going to be just 4 dudes hanging out, and it's going to be like Seinfeld? It's going to be like a show about nothing. Who knows?
4 dudes.
that sounds like it's like 2.5 men, but you just add 1.5. I'm glad somebody appreciated that. Thanks, Wes.
I'm sitting here double checking your math, actually. Mike, one of the first things that actually let's start here, Mike. Let's kind of talk about how you know everybody, just for the audience.
Yeah. So the story for everyone is a little different. But I met you all in our hometown. We all we're all from the same suburb in the Midwest. So I think I want to say, I'm not sure if Kevin and Lenny, I'm not sure if I met you guys like the same year, like if it was a year or 2 apart. But I met you guys in elementary school. So I think it was like 2nd or 3rd grade or something like that. And then Lenny and I were in Boy Scouts together through like various stages, like Cub Scouts and that kind of stuff. We kind of became friends through that. And then Kevin, we were kind of like, I don't want to say like enemies, but we were like, the little kid version of rivals in school. Like if you think about like your Pokemon game, like I feel like we would have been each other's rival if we were playing a Pokemon game. But then you moved in across the street from me. I want to say in like 6th grade, something like that. And we just kind of became friends because we started hanging out because we were so close. And then Wes, I didn't meet Wes until we were in high school. And I think Wes was kind of getting to be friends with Kevin. And so I got introduced to him through our mutual friend circle.
Yeah, so we met in second grade because that's when I moved into the district, and Kevin was moved there about the same time.
Hmm.
Um, and I think what happened is that like Michael, you and I were like sat at like the same like desk grouping.
Oh yeah, like
Um,
the little four square desk thingies that they used to do.
yeah. Anyways, but yeah, so and then yeah, so then we moved on to being in the same uh Boy Scout grouping, and just yeah, kind of went from there.
It's been a wild ride.
It's been a long time. But I think you need to elaborate on the story about when Kevin moved in across the street from you because it's a funny story.
Oh, yeah, that's
I think you do too. Yeah.
That's a good one. So Kevin tells it pretty well too, but so Kevin moved in across the street and I was outside for some reason. I think I was like playing catch or like hanging out with like a friend or something. And I saw Kevin's family moving in across the street, like moving into the house, and he came up to me and was like, "Hey Mike, guess what? I'm moving in." And I like quipped back, "Hey Kevin, guess what? I'm moving out." So if that indicates anything about our relationship prior to us starting to hang out in sixth grade forward, that's a good description right there, I guess.
Yeah, that was before our wall talks. Our first wall talk had ever happened. That's pre-wall
true.
talk. Yeah,
That's true. Yeah. So the wall talk, by the way, I don't know if I imagine you probably haven't mentioned this since it was like an us thing, but my dad had like a kind of low wall at the end of his driveway, and we'd just like sit there for hours, like kind of late at night, like 10 o'clock onward, and just like talk about stuff.
smoking cigarettes, drinking Arbor Mist wine.
There were definitely no cigarettes involved, and I'm pretty sure there was also never any alcohol involved.
There
but,
wasn't. There
know.
wasn't. Just two sophisticated young gentlemen without any substance use. Yeah,
That's right.
that's right. And yeah, Wes's Wes's kind of connection to Mike is always kind of interesting. Do you have a favorite story with Wes, since you had Boy Scouts with Lenny, moving in across the street, me moving in across the street from you, and then with Wes, do you have a favorite story?
There are a lot of funny stories with Wes. I don't know if I could pick one. Honestly, this is probably like a very random one, but the like one of the times hanging out with Wes that really sticks out to me was like meeting some of his family. So like we were over at his apartment and like went in and we're like hanging out and stuff and met his brother and like kind of went around and did some cruising, and it's like, I don't know, it would otherwise be maybe not a very like noteworthy evening, but it was just I thought it was a lot of fun to just like hang out and chat and cruise around with him. So that's the one that like sticks out to me for some reason, which is weird considering all of the other options for answers to that question.
Yeah, there's so many shenanigans you could have gotten into with Wes at that time. That
Yeah, if anyone's interested, there's in knowing more about those stories that Mike is alluding to. We did an episode on used cars, and Wes talked about his history with cars.
That was a good one. I liked that. That was a good one. I like that one.
Allegedly.
allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. I also remember, I fondly remember from that episode the specific Focus, I think it was, that Lenny test drove and was inching forward in neutral, and he turned to the salesman and said, "Listen, no offense, but I'm not buying this car." And the guy was like, "I don't blame you."
The one that I thought was the worst out of that episode was, didn't you say there was one that had like mold on the seatbelt?
Oh yeah, dude. So I'll just recount that real quick. I went out, it was out in the fucking boonies, this like giant like used car lot, and I looked at this fucking car, and it looked okay. And then I went to I had sat down in the driver's seat, went to put the seatbelt on, and there's just fucking mold all over the seatbelt, and I'm like, ugh, no. And so like when I eventually like made my way back to the sales desk, to like whoever like happened to be there at the time, I was like, yeah, you got this car? And I like told him the make and model and where it was at, and I was like, look, it's got like mold all over the place. And The lady had the audacity to say to me like, "Oh, yeah, we know. Well, we just kind of get super busy, so not all the cars get cleaned as regularly as they maybe should." And I'm like, "All right, yeah, I'm definitely not. I'm not buying anything from you guys."
How long does it take mold to grow on a seatbelt?
It takes a minute, dude.
we don't regularly clean our inventory. Sometimes it's not the appropriate excuse. You know, sometimes you got to just ad lib, I guess, but ad lib unsuccessful in that case.
I would never ad lib something that makes me sound incompetent. That's I'll just say that.
I mean, that's fair.
So, like, just the audacity to say that is like, I honestly, like, I have to like give them like a little bit of respect for just being like that honest, but at the same time, like, yeah, that's kind of fucked. Why don't we keep going with one of our more traditional my friend bits and ask you what your earliest memory is?
Yeah. So I had a feeling this question was coming. So it's kind of a weird. It's like a really weird random one that I don't think has any like relationship to anything else. But the first like vivid thing that I can remember is being on a train to Chicago. So like we were traveling from Toledo to Chicago. My dad had a like a job. He's a photographer, and he had a job there to shoot something or other. I don't know. I was like 3 years old, and I was going between train cars, and I looked down, and like little 3-year-old me like looks down, and like, you know how, have you guys ever been on a train and like been between the cars and like seen the little like gap in the I don't know what to call them, but they're like the accordion mesh type of stuff that like keeps them together. Yeah. So like little 3-year-old me looks down and like sees the ground whizzing by at like 70 miles an hour. And I'm like, oh, holy shit. That's scary as hell. Get me out of here. So
I feel like that's an appropriate reaction.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, that's really scary. That's kind of cool, but that's really scary. Like I'm a not be here anymore.
That's funny. So did you do a lot of traveling like with your dad's line of work like growing up, or like I know you didn't like move or anything like that, but like did you guys do a lot of traveling like that, like going to Chicago and stuff?
I mean, it wasn't a ton. There were some times when he was going to like a really cool spot that we just kind of like turn his work trip into a vacation. There was one we went to Canada. He had to do some shoot in Canada. And it was in Niagara Falls. And so he was like, well, this is an awesome family vacation. So like we like extended it and made a whole thing out of it. You know, and went and did like the boat down in the river, the Maid of the Mist, and like the big tower. I forget what the like big like sky tower thing he's called, but we did that. And so yeah, it was fun. I've only ever done Niagara Falls from the Canadian side, but it was very cool.
Supposedly that's the better side anyways.
I have heard that. I mean, the reason that I would see that being the better side is that you can, like, if you're on the American side, you can't see I think it's like New York Falls or like the American Falls or something. It's like the straight one, the one that's not horseshoe shaped. You can't like see that very well if you're on the American side. And at night they do like a light show on that, or they like light it up with backlighting and stuff, and it's pretty cool. We actually got in at night. I want to say we drove in. And so we got in at night, and like my first memory of Niagara Falls was like looking out the window and seeing this massive waterfall on the American side of the border, like lit up at night. And it was just really, really cool.
That's awesome. I keep telling Ashley how bad I want to take her, and just how cool it's just how cool of a place I think it is. So, all right. So, Mike, take me through childhood. I know there was a you know, a little bit of Lenny and Kevin in there once you hit second grade, but take me from your earliest memories through, like, you know, grade school and home life and all that fun stuff, wherever you want to go with that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a wide open topic, so I'm gonna just start talking, I guess. So
hell yeah.
So I went to elementary school in obviously the same town you guys did, in like the Toledo suburb. And then around 6th grade, my parents split up, stopped living together. And I started going to Maumee Valley, which is a private school in the Toledo area. So kind of like it wasn't entirely like moving to a new school district, because my dad's like was still living in Rossford, and I was still like staying there and hanging out with you guys, and I still like keeping in touch with all the people that I met in elementary school. But definitely had like that kind of like, move to a new school, like meet a bunch of new people type of experience, which was, I mean, it was what it was, right? Like it wasn't it wasn't great, it wasn't awesome, it wasn't like awful. It just, there were pluses and minuses. So did that, went there for the next, until I graduated high school. All the while was like, kind of played some sports there, did some nerdy stuff, played, on the chess team, played with, did like video games and that kind of stuff with you guys. And then went off to college. So I don't know like what would be interesting to like talk about within that. But yeah, that's like the abridged version.
Yeah, let's dissect that a little bit. So your parents split up in when you were in sixth grade. Um, do you care to talk about that at all, as far as like from your perspective, like what that was like, what that felt like, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think, ultimately a good thing. It was tough like in the moment, but um I think that it allowed, and I think my parents would agree with this, I think that it allowed both of them to be, better versions of themselves and better parents to me, than they would have been able to if they'd stayed together. So like ultimately it worked out well. There was definitely some stress, right? Like going back and forth, like from one house to the other, that kind of stuff. But um, overall, I think it was a good thing. It was for the best.
And as someone who like whose parents are still together, like I don't really know like a whole lot about like what that feels like. Is there like an internal monologue there, as far as like questioning if you did something, or like did you know that it was like since you were like 11, 12, like did you know that it was like, it was between your parents and not really anything to do with you?
I don't think it really. I never got that impression, that it was like, anything to do with me. I definitely understand like, some kids in that type of situation, um, can think that way, or get that impression, or have that internal monologue like you mentioned. That was never my experience. I think my parents did a pretty good job of making me understand that it was like between them, and it wasn't like there was nothing, that I did to contribute to that or anything. But I think like you mentioned, being a little older, when that happened, also probably helped, because I had like a little more emotional intelligence, for like, if that is the right word, to understand that.
So then you went to Maumee Valley, and I know you were on chess team. You did baseball too, didn't you? Played
Yeah,
baseball.
so I did when I was, in the first few years there, I did soccer, and then I was not good enough at soccer to be on the high school soccer team, so took up golf, and that was a lot of fun. I eventually got pretty decent at golf. Took about 4 years, but I finally was shooting like kind of close to par by my senior year. There's a really funny story. So you guys know the black Mustang that I got in my senior year of high school, right?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the week after that Mustang, after like we picked it up, I forget if I think it was like one of the end of the year matches. It was like a big match, right? It was like against a bunch of other schools in the area, and it was kind of like, like a tournament, or like a high stakes thing at the end of the year. And it was at Inverness, which is like a fancy, country club course, in Toledo. And so I had never played that course. I had been a caddy there for one summer, so I kind of sort of knew it, but not how to play it. Anyway, so I showed up to that and shot the absolute best round of golf I've ever shot in my life. It was a 42, and par was like 36 or something. So like an actually like perfectly respectable round of golf at a really like nice course. And either later that week or the next week, we had like the sports, like the fall sports awards ceremony, and my coach, when he got up on the stage to like present my like senior award or whatever it was, he addressed the audience and he was like, all I gotta say to Mike's parents is, why couldn't you have bought him the Mustang at the beginning of the season? Because he shot the best round of golf of his life the week after you got it. Yeah, so that's my funny golf story. So yeah, but I played golf, baseball, and chess all 4 years that I was in high school. So kept a busy schedule. I'm way too short to be good at basketball, so not really a ton of options for winter sports otherwise.
And folks, he still had plenty of spare time to kick my ass in Super Smash Brothers. So there's that. And Pokemon Stadium. That was good
Actually,
times.
to be fair, Super Smash Brothers probably qualifies as a sport in like a lot of high schools today.
Yeah, probably does.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of high schools are starting to do esports and stuff. So I just missed my time.
It's okay. We all did.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Now the video games that I'm good at are not the video games that are esport quality. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, you're playing World of Warcraft Classic and Elder Scrolls, right?
That's true.
World of Warcraft's an esport.
I mean,
if you're playing like retail, sure, but like,
yeah,
technically,
I mean that's true. If you're playing like the current release and you're like, one of the crazy good like dungeon players or PvPers, that qualifies. That's fair. But the game is so different. Like the classic game versus the new game is like the current release is so much different. I don't know if you've played both of them, Lenny, or anybody else. I think Wes plays, if I remember from a previous episode. But yeah, they're very different games.
I've played a fair amount. I no longer play World of Warcraft because there is a superior MMO on the market that I have switched to.
Yeah, it's called Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis.
Nice.
It's actually called Old School RuneScape.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of classic MMOs.
Yeah, for real.
Old School RuneScape is honestly the best video game ever made, but that's not actually the one I was talking about. It's called Lost Ark, and it makes all modern MMOs look like garbage.
Isn't that pay to win?
Obviously, classic WoW's not a modern MMO. Lost Ark can be pay to win, but there's a lot of people who have done videos that prove that even if you whale as hard as possible, like this dude dropped $20,000 just as an experiment. And within a week, the game dropped enough catch-up mechanics that he basically wasted $20,000.
Can I get $20,000 to waste on an experiment to prove that a video game is pay to win? I'm not going to spend it on that, but
I'm going to be 100% like transparent. The only thing I know about Lost Ark is what I've like listened to Asmongold talk about like while driving. So I don't.
Yeah.
I've never actually had the time to play it. So.
Yeah, I don't know. A good friend of mine that I met on ESO tried it, I think, or like was following it really closely, or just like was keeping up with it. And he was not super impressed, so I never really paid a ton of attention to it. That's the one that Amazon made, right?
Yeah.
Nope, it's
Gotcha.
the Amazon runs the US servers, but it is a Korean game that's been out since 2018. And
okay.
New World's the one that Amazon made, and that game's already dead. Game was awful.
Okay, I totally had Lost Ark and New World mixed up. Never mind. Disregard everything I said.
Should definitely check out Lost Ark though if you're into MMOs. Highly recommend.
I don't know. That's gonna be a tough sell.
Also, Old School RuneScape, best game ever. Still 2022 to infinity. Not even tongue in cheek. I truly believe that.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a bad game. I played it a little bit. I don't know, for like a year or so, right around the time that we were moving back from DC.
Speaking of DC, that's a whole chapter of life that we need to go through. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk about post high school and all that fun stuff. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to the Life Midwest podcast on the other side. Fuck me.
I hope that still makes it in.
Yeah, you have to leave that in.
I think we killed Kevin. Wes, what have you done? You killed Kevin.
I had to figure out how to play it.
All right.
Oh my god.
It
they
has
have,
different
like-
pitches.
Do they have like soundboards or something? Like, what's going on?
No, so Wes has a kazoo
Okay.
and Kevin has a harmonica. So Wes got the kazoo one time just because he thought it was funny, and it is rightfully so hilarious. And then so to one up Wes, Kevin got the harmonica, and now I forgot to get something, but I have to
You should
find
get a recorder.
some
You have to-
noise.
You have to get an air horn.
I was thinking about getting like a deer deer call or something like that. From, like,
That's Midwestern as fuck.
That is Midwest as hell. That's very on brand, buddy.
like an elk call, something just like, shittily and like super annoying.
Yo, if it's an elk call, it can be a perfect representation of you, because you like grew up in the Midwest and then moved to the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, we've got elk out here.
Yeah, dude, that's it.
I'm gonna see what I can swing. Brittany might get pissed off. She just randomly hears.
Honestly, you could just do it with your voice too. Like, that was pretty good.
All right, are we ready? Can I try again?
I thought we were still going.
Hey, if you're looking for ways to support the shit that you just heard, you can do that by going to paypal.me/thelifemidwest. It does cost money to run and produce the show, fucking believe it or not. If you're looking for free ways to support us, we do have a plethora of ways to do that as well. Reach out to us at any of our major social platforms at The Life Midwest. We also do have a website that Wes totally regularly keeps up and updates at thelifemidwest.com. Well, we've had a lot of fun talking to Mike so far. We're going to keep on keeping on here and talking about post-high school. And Mike actually went to the prestigious The Ohio State University. I'll let you talk about your major and all the fun stuff that you did. But yeah, take it away, man.
Yes, I went to Ohio State. I started out as an engineering an engineering major, and I was going to do a Chinese minor or something. Like, we had to take a language class, and like, I took Chinese in the last 2 years of high school because our high school was awesome and offered that as a foreign language. So realized after, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months that engineering was not it, and this math was really, really hard, and I didn't really want to do that. So I dropped engineering. I mean, the other thing was I'm also like super into cars, and the like type of engineering I wanted to do was mechanical engineering, because I was like, oh yeah, like, I'm really into cars. Like, I'm gonna make this my job, and it's gonna be awesome, and I'm gonna love my work. And at some point, I realized that if I didn't like the coursework this much, I was probably going to not like the job this much, and it was going to ruin this hobby that I really liked. So I woke up one morning before one of my engineering classes, like, I don't know, an hour and a half before class was supposed to start, dropped the class and went back to sleep. And I was like, I'll figure the rest out later. So did like a year or so of just doing like Chinese, right? Like, I switched my major to Chinese. Like, I was going to be a Chinese major, learn the language really well and all that. And then like a year later, I was in like one of those like guidance offices or whatever, like the career counseling offices, and saw it was like an info sheet or something, that they printed out for, like, common jobs that you can get with this major. There was some cool stuff on there, right? Like translator, like, people who, the like folks working with the State Department, like that kind of stuff. Like, there was cool stuff on there. The thing that caught my eye though was that all of the starting salaries were like $35,000 a year, and I was like, I'm going to college, and college is expensive, and that's not a lot of money. So I need to figure out something to go with this language degree that earns a little bit more money. And I found myself in the business school. So I graduated. I ultimately, like, skipping out a bunch of like the middle stuff, ultimately graduated with 2 majors, or 2 degrees, because when you take classes in, like, when you take a course of study in 2 different colleges within the same university, each college gives you a degree, right? So there's like the College of Business and the College of Arts and Sciences. And so the College of Arts and Sciences gave me a Chinese degree, and the College of Business gave me a business degree. So took a little longer than the standard college experience, but it was definitely worth, the journey was definitely worth the extra time investment. And I'm very happy with how it turned out.
How long did you end up going then?
So I was there for 5 years. I honestly probably could have finished in 4, but there were also some semesters there in the middle where I was just like, 15 credit hours is the minimum number that you have to take. And if I added a class and took like 18 or 20, that would be a lot of work. So I'm going to take 15.
Oh no, I got 2 degrees in 5 years. It took such a long time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think it took like that long. But if I were a more aggressive student, I could have finished in 4.
I mean, standard degree path is like 4 years anyways. So you did,
yeah.
So you did 8 years worth of work in 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to look at it. There's a lot of, when you do that kind of like double degree thing, there's a lot of crossover. So like people do that somewhat frequently. They do it frequently enough that the colleges have like figured out like, oh, well, we can make these like general education requirements like transferable. So, because I was taking a language degree, like all of my language requirements for the College of Business were fulfilled. And then there were like, science courses that like technically counted for one college but didn't count for the other, but since I was doing both degrees at the same time, like they were allowed to count for both and like that kind of stuff. So universities definitely like try to make that efficient, or at least Ohio State did. I guess I can't speak to all universities, but Ohio State definitely tried to make that efficient so that I could do that like 2 courses of study at the same time path.
That's fair, but I think what I say still stands.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll take it.
Yeah. Just take it and run at this point. So what did those 2 schools lead you into? Like like after you graduated college, where'd you go from there?
Yeah. So I promptly stopped using my Chinese language entirely when I got a job with Ford Motor Company, being a salesperson in the field. So for the first 2 years, I sold new cars to dealerships, which is like selling car. I always joke that like selling cars to car dealers is actually like a lot more fun than it sounds like. And it was probably one of my favorite experiences, one of my favorite jobs that I've had. So the regional office I worked in was great. Ford had a great culture. Ford was a great company to work for. And I did that sales job, did some consulting stuff for service departments for a year after that, and then did like some team, like not like manager stuff, but like team lead stuff, like kind of like a senior like mentor type of role on that team, before I moved on from Ford and we moved back to the Midwest and started working. I started working at Wendy's at the corporate office doing regional marketing stuff. So Ford, again, like Ford was an awesome experience. And I did it, like, if you're paying attention, you might notice that I did actually end up making like cars and such my job. So even though I switched out of engineering, I did end up kind of doing that for a few years for work. But it was a job that I enjoyed, so it didn't ruin my hobby, which was good because I still like cars and I still like my Mustang and all that kind of stuff.
I think a lot of people might ask what made you leave that job then if you liked it so much.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great topic for this podcast specifically. So I left that job because we wanted to move back to the Midwest. And the reason was there were a lot of reasons. One, both of our families are here in Ohio. The other big reasons were things like cost of living, the requirements of living on the East Coast. So I was in the Washington D.C. regional office, and the requirements for living on the East Coast are just insane. And I imagine Lenny can probably relate to this a little bit living out west, but like rent, our rent on our 900 square foot apartment was more money a month than we pay for our 2,000 square foot house in Ohio. And so it's like, when that's the cost of living, you're basically like, both people have to be working full time at a traditional job to make the income required. There's no flexibility in scheduling. There's no there's just a lot of demands on your time and on your life to live in that environment. So living in DC, very cool experience. Like having all of that stuff, like having all the museums and the monuments and all that kind of stuff around, very cool. Practically, like in terms of quality of life, I think quality of life definitely better now that we have moved back to the Midwest and have a little more flexibility on some of that.
Speaking of do you want to talk about your wife and how you two love birds, Matt?
Sure. So we met.
Is she listening?
She is. She's sitting next to me. I actually turned to look at her when I started answering that question. She's smiling. So we met at Ohio State. She came to Car Club. So I was during my, I want to say junior, senior, and then my victory lap year. I was the president of the Car Club at Ohio State, and that sounds really fancy and cool. We started with a club that was 3 or 4 people, because the club that we inherited was not super engaging or big. And so our task was to grow it, build it back up and grow it. So over those few years, we grew it pretty well. I'd say by the time I graduated, we had 15 to 20 people who rotated in and out of coming to events and that kind of stuff. But anyway, so I was the president. She showed up to a meeting, and I had, the meeting that she first showed up to, I had this super beater, not my cool fancy car, just the thing that I drove around on campus and got good gas mileage. It was kind of a junker. And so we did whatever meet, and I think she was a little flirty then, maybe.
I don't know. I think so.
But not anything crazy. And then anyway, the next meeting, she was there again, and I'm being told not to misrepresent it. So I guess I'm on the spot now. So the next meeting, I came in my Mustang, and she. Oh no! Is that wrong? Oh, I'm being told that's wrong.
This is like a game show within the podcast. Yeah. I love it.
Oh, okay.
And one day before you brought the Mustang out, it was the meeting prior, I started laying it on thick at the burger place.
Okay, that's true.
The next time after I had already started flirting with you, you rolled up in that, and I was like,
okay, that's true. So anyway, next meeting shows up, and we go to some burger place. I think it was called Graffiti Burger. And she decided, she was going to be very, very flirty, and pursue me. And so we were kind of flirty there. And then it was, I think you're right. I think it was a few more meetings before I brought the Mustang. Anyway, so we met. The long story short, we met at Car Club at Ohio State, and it was awesome to meet somebody somebody at a place like that where you have like it like a built-in immediate like
Common interest.
shared hobby, shared interest, that kind of thing.
That's adorable.
We are, aren't we?
Yeah, you guys truly are. You guys truly are. I went to Columbus recently. Ashley had a continuous education meeting, and so I kind of had like free roam of the day with the rental car, and paid Mike and Megan a visit, and yeah, it was a lot of fun, and beautiful home, and just lovely people to hang out and spend time with. So,
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad that we were able to come down and we were able to hang out.
and a dog that I thought was only like 10 months old.
Avalon is the star of the show, to be fair. So her name is Avalon. She is a German Shepherd lab mix with a little tiny touch of Alaskan Malamute. We got a doggy DNA test, and that was the wild card that we were like, yeah, nobody saw that one coming. But yeah, she's awesome. She looks like an eternal puppy, even though she is 10 years old. So Kevin, we play this game where like when somebody new meets her, we're like, oh yeah, guess how old our dog is. And usually people's guesses range from like, 10 months to like 2 years. And then we're like, multiply that by like between 5 and 12. And it's just like, nobody sees it coming.
I sure didn't. That's for sure. I definitely didn't. So yeah, she's a sweet girl.
For sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Love my girl.
Absolutely. So what so you went to Wendy's, you moved back to the Midwest, you started working at Wendy's corporate. I'm gonna ask what I know a lot of listeners are probably gonna ask. Did you get to meet the person who runs the Wendy's Twitter?
So that's a great question, and I get asked that almost every single time. So the answer is no, and the elaborated answer is that it's not actually a single person. It is there is a team of people, and the really cool thing about the Wendy's Twitter is that none of that stuff goes through any kind of approvals, right? So if you think about like
what? No.
If
What?
you think about so if you think about like your corporate job, right? And like your like corporate communications, you think about like, oh yeah, everything has to get approved, and like the CMO probably sees it, and like all that kind of stuff. And this has been, I think I'm fine to say this because this has been published in like interviews with the CMO have been published in like marketing magazines and stuff. And he talks about this a lot. Yeah. The secret is that there's no approvals. There's just a team that intensely understands the voice and the goal and like how to do that, like how to be the Wendy's Twitter and like where the line is. And they're just really, really, really good at doing it. So yeah, none of the roasts or anything are ever like shown to senior management before they get posted.
That's amazing.
Okay, so since you have elaborated that you haven't met the single person that does it, have you ever met any of the people involved in that?
So I do know I am acquainted with the social media marketing manager, who kind of like she's not the people who are like on the keyboard, but she works with them really closely in terms of like defining like the voice, like making sure that that they're approaching it the right way, they're not like going overboard or like that they're doing it in the right way. So kind of I'm like acquainted with people who are involved, if that counts.
I think that counts enough.
Yeah, it's cool enough for me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then yes. You know what one of the like cool perks about working there was?
The test kitchen?
Yes, dude. So there's a test kitchen in the headquarters office, and they test new products on their employees before like putting them into the restaurants. So we would occasionally get like, and I obviously can't like, well, I guess everything I tested is probably out at this point, but I probably still shouldn't talk about any of the like specific products, but like the opportunity to taste and like check out the new recipes was really cool. And then also just like having a Wendy's burger prepared by like a professional chef versus like the random people that they hire in the restaurants. Like, it's insane. Like, it's actually a really, really, really good hamburger when they make it in the test kitchen.
When I worked at Wendy's, the franchise I worked at was actually pretty chill, and I would open in the morning and we got our employee meal. So I would just experiment on the nice, clean, flat top, hot surface.
Oh yeah.
Like chopping up those fresh burgers and then like mixing it with like onions and barbecue sauce, throwing it in like a patty or like a tortilla wrap. And people got caught onto it. They're like, damn, what are you doing for your meal? And I started making everyone else their meals.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
Test chef. I'm not a chef,
Honestly,
but
honestly though, like that's like not all that dissimilar to like what those folks do, right? Like, they're a lot of what they do is thinking about like, hey, like, what do we already have in the restaurant and what can we make with that? Because, you know, it's difficult and expensive to add like new items to the stock room. So like, what do we already have in here? Like, what cool new stuff can we make with that? So like, you're not that far off, man.
Yeah, I heard an interview. There used to he's pretty well known on like Twitter and like makes a bunch of like podcast rounds, but his name's Chef Mike, and he used to be the head chef for McDonald's.
Yeah.
And I heard him do like an interview one time where he talked about like having to be careful about like what new things they developed, because like he gave the example, like if they decided they wanted to put blueberries in something, they could like decimate the world's supply of blueberries. Just because of how demanding like their supply chain is, and like how much they serve like throughout the entire world.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I could believe that. That's kind of insane.
Big as McDonald's, but I'm sure they have like such a still a sizable footprint for something like that to maybe be a concern.
They still have a massive number of restaurants, so I don't know that there was ever like a concern about like impacting. And like, I wasn't on those teams, right? So I like wasn't in a lot of those meetings, but I don't think they're that big. But yeah, they definitely have like a huge footprint. They're also growing, right? They're opening a lot of like international restaurants now. I think they just started doing stuff in the UK. So, or if they haven't, it's gonna be soon. They were posting on Twitter about that recently. So
I think it was Wendy's. I believe they have a Wendy's in Tokyo.
they're definitely in Japan.
In Thailand, I don't know. I guess I would have to Google it because they definitely don't in Chiang Mai, as far as I know. Wendy's, Thailand.
I thought that would be a nice segue into our Thai word of the day before we go to the shout outs.
Thai word for like hamburger or something like that.
No, I think it's just so like in Japanese it's hambagu. So in Thai I'm sure they have a word for it, but I haven't come across that. Well, I think it's just hamburger. Like they call their chicken because KFC's all over the place here, and they have like chicken on buns, and they call it chicken hamburger or chicken burger, I think, even though it's just strictly not.
Ask Yui. She's got to be right there, yeah?
She is sequestered away in the room behind. I don't know if she can hear me. I'll knock on the glass and see if it summons her. She's coming. We have our answers. An entire audience that wants to know is there a Thai word for hamburger? Hamburger. Can you let our audience know? Yeah, pronounce it clearly in Thai.
Like Thai people said,
Yes.
hamburger.
Really close.
Yeah.
It's honestly kind of disappointing.
Burger.
Burger. Really saying it in Thai. On the theme of words that are basically just English, I'm going to run through a couple. Can y'all guess what dinosaur is in Thai?
Is it dinosaur?
Close. It is dinosaur.
Wow.
Okay.
Dinosaur.
Yeah.
Hold on. What else do we have? Can you guys guess what coffee is in Thai? Also very close. It's gafe.
Oh,
Gafe.
okay.
Oh my! Yui just keeps correcting me because I'm wrong. It's okay. Come on. Thai word of the day, Yui. Let's do it. Learning less with you, or learning Yui with Thai. All right, Yui. I'm going to say the word in English, and you're going to say it in Thai. Okay? Coffee.
กาแฟ
Dinosaur.
ไดโนเสาร์
Poop.
oh no
Did she say oh no?
She said, "Oh no!"
Yeah.
Walked away and closed the door. For the record,
she's
poop in
like-
Thai
she's
is
like-
not poop.
She's like, you had me in the first half, not gonna lie.
Yeah, that was fucking brilliant though.
All right.
Okay, so now if you're ever in Thailand, you have to poop, just go, oh no, and then walk away.
I think they'll still get it. They're like, "Oh, that guy's got to poop."
It's been really, really fucking fun. It's been real fun. Mike, lead us off with the shout outs. Who do you want to shout out on your episode, buddy?
So first shout out, obviously, to my lovely wife, who is amazing and supports me in everything and makes me a better person. Second shout out, because I understand it's a tradition on the podcast, would be to my mom. Call your moms.
Yes.
Fuck yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I guess not that she'll probably ever hear this, but third shout out to my high school Chinese teacher who made learning the language super fun. And since we talked about like Chinese and like my path, you know, a ton of where I am today can be traced back to that class, because it ultimately like it gave me a way to move on from engineering, and it was kind of like an intermediate path that I took, and I wouldn't have taken it without her. So it's one of those butterfly effect moments, but shout out to her.
That's really cool, man. Can you
That's a good shout
can
out.
you can you give us the Chinese translation for
Hamburger?
fresh off the log?
I don't think I can give you fresh off the log. Sorry. I could do hamburger.
Okay, what's hamburger?
Hambao.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
But I'm gonna obviously give first shout outs to my lovely wife Brittany. Shout out Mike, I want to shout you out. Thanks for coming on, man.
Oh, thanks.
I'm probably without a doubt, you are certainly like the oldest and best friend that I have, and you've really helped me through some times in my life, even if you don't know that you did.
Aw, thanks, man.
And so shout out to you for coming on. And let's see, no anti shout outs this week, so that's nice.
What a great episode. No anti shout outs.
Actually, you know what?
Fuck.
I actually do have an anti shout out.
Oh shit.
I want to anti shout out my local Wendy's, not because the food's bad, but because they take for fucking ever.
Yeah.
And this isn't like, this is like a unique problem to one specific Wendy's in my area. The rest of them you move pretty quickly, like, you know, on par with other fast foods. But this one that's closest to my house, like I'm in the drive-thru for at least 8 to 10 minutes.
I'd like to give a shout out to my wife Yui. You know, I guess we should do that first since wives are important. Second shout out to mothers, call your mom, because moms are also important. And I want to give a shout out to Wendy's, because y'all gonna love Wendy's. Nuts are on your chin.
Oh my god.
Oh, that was really. Of course, the kazoo doesn't work then.
I got you, buddy. Yeah, I want to shout out my amazing future wife, Ashley. I want to shout out Wendy's for having incredible food and breakfast too. Great job on the breakfast menu stuff there, Mikey. I know that wasn't you, but you know I give you partial credit just for being associated. You don't have the whole guilty by association thing.
I used to sit next to the dude who actually is like very responsible for that, so I'll tell him.
So you fucking made it happen. I mean, you were right there next to him when it happened.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Of course, want to shout out Mike for coming on the show. Thank you so much for being my best friend and for agreeing to be a part of my big day next year. As with all three of you actually are going to be at my wedding. But thanks for all the wall talks, for all the car rides, for all the joy rides, everything that you taught me about cars when I was learning and when I was into it as much as I was, and just some really, really great genuine memories that I will never, ever, ever forget.
Big same for all you guys. Also, thanks for having me on. This was awesome.
It was a lot of fun. Next week will not be fun though, folks. We're going to be
Damn.
As usual.
As usual.
Back to our normal scheduled program.
Good to call your mom. Shout out to parents, of course. Tune in next Saturday as we'll be talking about Roe v. Wade being overturned and offering some opinions on that. And actually, we're going to deliver some facts, too, so get ready for those. Wes has some sweet, sweet fucking facts for your ass lined up. Until then, we'll talk to you next Saturday and every Saturday here on the Life Midwest podcast. Take care. Have a good one.